Hi, my name is Trent Martin. I am the owner of Columbus Epoxy Flooring. In this video, we want to show you how to do a standard 2-car garage with the exact same industrial products that we use ourselves every day. We've installed a number of different epoxy floors and resinous coatings for a little over 10 years now, from residential to commercial to industrial. We get a lot of people that ask us about DIY and how they can do it themselves. The floor that we are going to be installing in this garage is our most common, just a standard flake application. Excellent aesthetics, good durability, it's easy to clean, helps hide dirt. It's great to hide salt, and it does provide some traction as well for good slip resistance. If at any point during the video you need to go back and check a reference, check out the timestamps, take your time, do your research on all these products that we're going to be talking about in the video, which will have links and technical data sheets, things like that, so you can bring yourself up to speed on it and feel more comfortable. I do recommend that you have a little bit of painting experience, and I do also recommend that you have at least 1 or 2 other people helping you. It's going to make the process a lot less stressful and just help things to go a lot smoother throughout. So this garage that we're about to work on is about 400 square feet. It's just a standard 2-car garage. I recommend that a lot of DIYers that aren't familiar with this at all don't get much bigger than a 2 or 3-car garage, 400 to 600 square feet. It's going to be manageable. It's going to be nice to, get acclimated to without getting too stressed out over it, learning the cure cycles of the products, things like that. We're gonna start obviously by prepping the floor. We'll do some minor patchwork. We will go ahead and lay the base coat in flake, come back the following day after we let the floor cure up for 24 hours. We'll get all the loose flake and everything prepped and ready for the final top coat. We'll get that applied, and then that will be pretty much it for the installation. So to start out, we need to prep the floor. There's a few different methods that you can look at. You can diamond grind, shot blast, or acid etch are probably 3 of the most common. We prefer to use diamond grinding personally for this specific application because it allows the coating to really penetrate into the concrete and get a good bond. It also removes any oil, staining, things like that on the surface. This floor that we're getting ready to work on is a pretty new floor. It doesn't have a lot of imperfections, cracks, pits, spalling, things like that that need repaired. We have a patch material that we like to use. We'll go around with that and use that material to fill cracks, minor pitting, and some minor voids to leave a nice smooth surface so those imperfections don't show through. I do recommend that if you have a heavily damaged concrete floor that's old, that you do hire a professional. You're going to get into a lot of more complicated products to use and different prep equipment that most people aren't going to easily be able to get their hands on. We're just going to go ahead and jump right into it now. We're going to go ahead and begin the prep work by just starting by grinding all the edges first. We're going to use a 7-inch hand grinder. On the bottom here, we just have a cup wheel. There's a number of different cup wheels you can get. A lot of times you can even get these at like Home Depot. Then of course, safety equipment is important. Knee pads, earplugs, dust masks, and then obviously like for this, we have a shroud attached with a good industrial vacuum, which is going to help keep all the dust down. We've already gone around on the perimeters and filled it with a patch material. There's normally a crack, that's where the floor meets. These are called stem walls. So filling that just kind of leaves a nice final finish of the product. We've used a special patch material for our company, but if you'd like, you can go around with just a masonry caulking. That kind of helps fill that gap, and it does just as well. As we're grinding around the edge, it's important to leave the grinder flat, not to kind of tip it forward or back, because you're going to grind into the floor and leave gouge marks throughout. So just try to leave the grinder smooth, and when you're working it, move it in a circular motion, which you'll see me doing here in a second. That'll just help to leave a nice finish so you don't leave any grinder marks showing through on your finish. All right, so now we've gone around and prepped all the edge work and gotten that done. Now we're gonna go in with one of our big floor machines right here to get the main area. Underneath here, you can see that we've got little diamond segments that we use. There's 9 on this particular machine. This floor is a little bit harder, so we're gonna go with some more aggressive diamonds. That's gonna help us cut a little bit quicker, get a better profile on the floor. So again, the coating has something to grab to and get it and bond to the surface. This machine's about 1,000 pounds, so it's got a lot of head pressure. It's gonna help us to cut pretty efficiently, hopefully with these diamonds. We're gonna get a vac hooked up to it just like we did with the small guy, keep the dust down. We'll go ahead and get to it. As a final part of the preparation, we have a little bit of a lip here at the end of the garage. This customer chose to terminate it, so the coating is gonna wrap right over this lip here. So to prep that, we're just gonna run around with a little grinder with a 4-inch cup wheel, and we're gonna go around and prep this. And the reason we wanna do that is to make sure that the coating's be able to really bond to that so that we don't have a weak point there when they're pulling in with the tires on a daily basis and potentially start to fail the coating right there at the edge. All right, so with all the prep now completed, before we start coating, it's super, super crucial that we get all this dust and debris and everything cleaned up really well. So what we do is we'll go around with one of our vacs and make sure that we get everything vacked up really well. We don't have any loose debris and dust on the surface. And once all that's done, we'll be ready to coat and jump right into it. All right, so we've prepped the floor, we got it all cleaned up and ready. So now we are ready to patch a couple minor things before we're finally ready to coat and flake. So I'll go ahead and show how we mix this up and then how we're gonna go ahead and perform the patchwork. It's important to know the ratio, as with all these products. So for the Hypercure, it is a 1-to-1 ratio. This part here, which is your part A, is gonna be incredibly thick. So we'll go ahead and put this in our mixing container first, put the part B in later, and then we're gonna make sure that, again, that we have about a 1-to-1 ratio. We'll go ahead and mix that up very thoroughly. We don't need a lot, so I'm gonna go ahead and mix about 4-ounce mix. So we'll try to get the part A in there, fill it up to about 2 ounces, the best that we can. I'll go ahead and pour about an equal part of part B in. And then we'll mix that up really thoroughly, and then we'll have the paste that we need to start patching with. I would mix this thoroughly for at least a minute. Another thing to be cautious of with this product is it does set up extremely fast. So again, mix for really small batches, and then you're gonna wanna get it out pretty quickly. I'd say you've got about, ideally, maybe 10 to 15 minutes max working time with this product. Then once we're done with that, I like to spread it out onto a piece of cardboard. It just makes it a little bit easier to work with a putty knife. Then we'll go ahead and take this to the floor and patch some cracks up. All right, so right here's kind of crack that you're gonna wanna look out for, especially like this big and bigger, because what's gonna happen is the product's gonna suck down in that crack and you're gonna see it through your finish. So we'll go through, just kind of get some on your putty knife here, and then we'll just work it into the crack. Go back, make sure it's smooth. And then you've got some other little pits like along the edges, like any divots like that are big enough, or if you're even worried about them, just go ahead and patch them. Make sure that they don't, again, show through on your finish. All right, so we got this area patched. We're gonna go around and inspect some other areas, and we'll get that patched up as well. And then we'll be ready to get some coating down. So we are ready to get to the coating and flaking part of the application process. So before we get started, we just want to do a quick overview of the mixing and some of the tools that we're going to need to actually apply the coating. So to get started, we are going to need an 18-inch roller frame, 3/8-inch nap. We're going to use that to actually spread and apply the coating. Our drill to actually mix the product, just a pretty much normal paint mixing paddle. We've got our product here. We've got our pigment to go with the product. For our base coat, we will be using the Hyper Bond. So we've got our 1 part B, 2 parts A. We've got about 400 square feet, so we're just going to go ahead and mix up the whole 3-gallon kit, and we're going to mix up 1 pigment pod to a 3-gallon kit. That's going to give us what we need. Once we're mixed, we're going to mix everything into this big bucket. We're going to mix it for 2 minutes. After it's mixed, we're going to go ahead and pour some into the little bucket here. We're going to use this to cut out of to do our edge work. And then we're going to do that with our 3-inch chip brush. One more thing is the spikes. You definitely are going to want a set of spikes. We will sell those spikes, so you will be able to get those, and that's going to actually let you walk in the material, so you're not going to have to worry about painting yourself into a corner. It is important before we start to get everything kind of laid out, as you can see with our mix station here. Another tip is to keep the mix station close to the area that you're going to be applying the product. That way you're not getting material all over the place. So go ahead, you're going to need about 80 pounds of flake for this project. This is about 400 square feet. So if you multiply 0.16 by the square footage that you have, that'll give you about how much flake we need. It's sold in 40-pound boxes, so we'll round up, so we got 80 pounds for this. So go ahead and fill a bunch of buckets up with the flake. That's gonna make it so it's not as heavy when you're flaking it. So we'll go ahead, all these kits are already ratioed out, so we'll just go ahead and pour the whole 3-gallon mix in. Again, then we'll go ahead and pour the whole pod in. It's 1 pod per 3-gallon mix. Now that we have that, we're gonna go ahead and mix this up thoroughly for a minimum of 2 minutes. After the 2 minutes, once it's mixed and it's uniform, you'll be good to go. All right, so to get started, we're gonna start by pouring some of this bigger mix into the little cup. We're gonna use the little cup to do our edge work with. We'll use this to cut out all of our edges. We'll go ahead and fill up the cup. And now that that's in there and we're good, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of split the room into thirds. I'm gonna pour a ribbon about a third of the way down, and then we'll go another third of the way down. And we're gonna try to pour that pretty evenly, and that's gonna let us use our roller to evenly spread that out. So we're just gonna go ahead and use that brush to dip out of this little cup. And then we'll use this part here to cut all the way around. So because we did the walls, you do wanna run it into the wall just a little bit, overlap it so that you don't see any difference in the finish. You also don't wanna put it too thin. You want it pretty thick again, just so you've got plenty of body for the flake to stick to. It's better to be a little bit too thick than too thin. All right, so we got all the edges cut out. Now we're gonna use the 18-inch roller. First, before we start, just go ahead and get the roller wet. And then once we have it saturated, we're gonna go in and we're gonna work out of each line. We really wanna get the material evenly spread out. All right, so now that we got everything pretty well rolled out for the most part, we're just gonna do a final cross roll north to south. So we'll go all the way up, all the way down, all the way up, all the way down, and then once that's done, we're gonna flip it, and then we'll go east to west. All right, so we finally got everything all rolled out. The coat's nice and even, so it's time for the fun part. We're gonna get ready to throw the flake. It's pretty easy. All you gotta do, it's basically like feeding chickens. Take a handful of flake, throw it up in the air, and just let it fall down. And we're gonna go and do that all over the floor until it's evenly covered. When we're done, you might wait a little bit because you might have a couple thicker areas in the floor where it'll start to bleed through the flake. If you see that, just throw a little bit more flake on it. After you do that, it'll cover it and you'll have a nice uniform color when we're all done. So we went ahead and let the coating set up overnight. Now we need to reclaim the flake, the excess flake that's sitting on the surface. This is what we want to get cleaned up. Ideally, we want to get it buttoned down as well as possible. First, we're going to go around with the scraper. For this garage, I'm just going to go ahead and work all the flake toward the back. That's going to be my first step. We're going to reclaim that flake. And then once that's done, I'll come back with a leaf blower, do the same thing, work the flake towards the back. So you can see how much we reclaimed here off just the scraping. So what we're gonna do now is just scoop this into the box that we originally came in. We'll save that. We can use it on another project if you'd like. And then after we blow it, we're gonna reclaim another pile. All right, so now that we've got all the flake reclaimed, I personally like to go around with the pole sander. We've got 120 grit screen on the bottom of this. It makes it a little bit nicer of a finish after we put the top coat on. It also makes applying the top coat just a little bit nicer, just so you don't have all the little peaks on the flake that are grabbing the squeegee as we're applying it. So we'll go ahead and show that here. One final piece of the prep is this lip here. We've got a little bit where the coating, it's a little bit sloppy here. So what I like to do is I'm gonna go around with an angle grinder, just with a masonry cut wheel, and just kind of use it to clean up that edge, leave it nice and straight, and that'll really give a nice polished look on the final. So we got all the flake reclaimed on the floor. We went around, sanded it just to get it nice and buttoned down. So now before we're finally ready to apply that final top coat, we need to go around with a shop vac, just get any loose debris and flake cleaned up. And then once we get everything thoroughly cleaned, we'll finally be ready to apply that top coat. All right, so we're finally ready to get to the final top coat on the installation. We're gonna go ahead and use this polyaspartic here. The name of this product is Aspartic 85 Slow Go. It is the lower odor version of what we normally use. It's a great benefit because you're not gonna have to deal with all the VOCs. It's still got a little bit of an odor, so if you are sensitive, it is recommended you wear a respirator. So let's go ahead and look through what we got here just to get mixed. Obviously, drill with just a normal paint paddle, and then we've got our part B, 2 part A's. The mix ratio on this is a 2:1. It's really important that you get that mix ratio correct. So for this, because we're just doing a 400 square foot garage, our goal is to shoot around 150 to 200 square feet per gallon. We got 3 gallons here, so that should get us up to a maximum of 450 square feet ideally. One thing I want to talk about really quickly before we do mix it up, with the epoxy that we mixed for the base coat with the flake, you're going to have to be concerned with pot life. Pot life is when you mix the product up, it's sitting in mass in the bucket. You're going to lose a lot of working time on that. You're typically looking around 15 to 20 minutes in mass. If you get it out on the floor, as you saw I poured out earlier in the video where it was poured out in ribbons, that's going to give you a lot more working time. This product is going to behave the exact opposite. So you're going to have a lot more working time in mass, whereas once you get it out on the floor, the clock's going to start ticking and you're going to lose that working time. So we got our product all mixed up. We're gonna go ahead and start applying it. I've just transferred a little bit of the bigger mix into just a small cup here. I'm gonna use that small cup, just go around the perimeters with my 3-inch chip brush. You want a pretty decent film on the surface. You don't want it too thin because you're just gonna leave the floor rough. So when we go around, we'll keep that into consideration. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go ahead and pour the ribbon down the wall. You've got a lot more working time again in mass, so don't pour it all out. Once we get toward the back, we're gonna kind of meter it out of the bucket. We'll go ahead and use our flat squeegee to start squeegeeing that ribbon out. So what we're using the squeegee for is to pretty much just get the material evened out for the most part. And then once we have it spread out, we can go back with the roller and use that to really fine tune everything and really just get the material fully evened out and have a nice finish on it. Most garages, you have like a saw cut or a control joint. I would recommend that you use that to your advantage if you have them available to stop at those so that you're not worried about getting it all finished out. In this garage, unfortunately, we don't have that, so we're just gonna go ahead and get it all done here at once. When you're using the squeegee, you want to keep even downward pressure on it so you're not leaving any puddles. And just kind of use that downward force. And then you also want to tilt it slightly just so that you're working that ribbon and that puddle out in front of you. So we've left a little puddle here. We've got everything squeegeed out, but we left this puddle here at the end. You want to get your 18-inch roller saturated before you start rolling, just because if I start rolling in the middle of the floor and it's not saturated, it might pull up that area and it'll leave a little bit drier there where you start in the finish. So we'll go ahead and get this saturated and then we'll go ahead and start rolling. So now that we're rolling, we're gonna go ahead and just kinda, I call it M and W, just like you're painting a wall. We'll go all the way around, all the way up, all the way down, and then once we're done, we're gonna do a final back roll. I call it back roll or cross roll. All the way across, we'll go from one end of the wall all the way to the other side, and then that'll give us a nice, even, uniform finish when we're done. When you're rolling, after you've got it spread out, after about 15 minutes, you're gonna start to feel it tack up, so you'll wanna keep a good pace. Because if it tacks up too much, it's going to be really difficult to get it rolled out. So we'll go ahead and keep moving it here. You definitely want to be keeping a good pace. If you've got a person helping you, you might have them start to roll behind you while you're squeegeeing. So once you get about maybe half the area squeegeed, start having a second person roll behind you. That way you're staying ahead of the game. So we've gone ahead and just done an M&W up and down all the way from the back of the garage to the front. So now we're just gonna start from one wall, work all our way down to the other one without picking up our roller. That's gonna keep it from leaving any potential roller marks. And then we'll pick it up at the other end, flip it around, start at one end, go all the way down to the other, and we'll just continue doing that until we work our way out of the garage. When you're doing this, you're gonna wanna overlap each pass about 1/4 of the width of the roller. You're gonna feel the coating start to tack up quite a bit. At this point, you've still got a decent bit of working time, so there's no need to panic. You'll still have plenty of time to get it rolled out, but just keep moving, working your way out, keep a good pace, and you'll be able to get out and get it finished. I would estimate you've got about 25 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes to get it spread out with the squeegee, and then maybe another 10 to 15 minutes to get it rolled out. So in total, you're probably looking at 35 to 40 minutes with good temperatures and lower humidity. Another tip is to keep all your product out of the sunlight. If you leave your product in the sunlight and the heat, it's gonna cut down your working time dramatically. Now that we got everything coated, finally laid out, the floor is all done. The final part is the messy part, just kind of clean up all of our tools. To clean up all of our tools, I just use denatured alcohol. Use a couple other solvents that you can use, xylene and acetone. We prefer denatured alcohol. It's not as hard on your body if you do get it on your skin, and it works just as well as a solvent for getting all your tools cleaned off. That's the final part of the process. All right, so here we are, the final is done. We have this garage floor completely transformed. We will be leaving links in the description to all the items that were used. Most of them you'll be able to order through us. Most of the items that you won't be able to get through us, you can just get through your general hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot. If you go to our website, you'll be able to find the data sheets on all these products that were used. It's important to study those, get to know those. That's gonna help you learn the product, how it behaves, what conditions to use it in, so you can study that and kind of get acclimated before you jump into it. So we showed you how to do the floors. If you want more in-depth on how to install the coating on the walls, we'll leave a link in the description to another video that we did that goes into a little bit more detail on the walls. So that's it. We've got it all wrapped up. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you again next time.